Good evening. It is Friday, May the 27th, about 11 o'clock p.m. This is Shay Gibson with Wind Alert and iKitesurf, and this forecast is for Saturday and Sunday going out to the Collegiate Kiteboarding Association National Championships in the Outer Banks. So we do have a system brewing in the tropics heading towards the South Carolina coast right now, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. It was upgraded from Invest 91L to Tropical Depression number 2, and this system will likely have some impacts on southeast North Carolina and up into the Outer Banks, North Carolina as we go through the next few days. So let's look at the National Hurricane Center. Here's Tropical Depression number 2 holding at 35 miles an hour with pressure down to 1009 millibars heading to the west-northwest at about 11 knots. And that will continue to be the track for the next 24 to 48 hours as this system does look to make a connection to the middle South Carolina coast, specifically right where I am at in Charleston, South Carolina. So we're going to be watching this very closely. Here is the track guidance from the National Hurricane Center showing the storm hitting or making contact with the coast and then going up towards the northeast through southeast North Carolina, and where it goes from there, the berth gets very, very wide because there's a lot of model agreement and disagreement on where this thing exactly will go. So just because this says that it's going to be heading through this area as a depression doesn't necessarily mean that will be happening. There's some other things at play here, but the main thing to be focused on is that the storm looks to stall in this area for just a little bit before it does peel out to the northeast, and that's going to allow for more rains to head up into this area. So if we look at Datascope, and this is just our professional viewer here, I want to be able to look at a few extra things, but our area of disturbance is right about here, and it's heading in this general direction, west-northwest towards the South Carolina coast. Actually, the area of disturbance is here heading in this direction. So what we have is we have an upper trough that's still remnant of an old front, and this trough was supposed to stay off to the east, but now it's actually pulling up over the system. It's creating some upper level shear on it, which is going to limit its growth. It's tearing some of the cloud tops off as that upper trough stays over the top of the low level circulation. It's nighttime now, so you can't really see. It looks very disorganized, but in the daytime we get a higher resolution satellite feed. Right now we're only on infrared, so we're not actually seeing what's happening in the surface, but there is a healthy little surface rotation going on beneath all of this clouding that is heading in this general direction. As it closed low, it's Tropical Depression number 2, and we may even get the name Bonnie tonight or by the time we wake up in the morning. So this system is expected to continue in this general direction. What that means for the Outer Banks is that the winds right now are in an easterly. They should become a little bit more southeast or even southeasterly for the Outer Banks in time, and the gradient looks to be a little bit in and out in this area and stronger down along these zones right here from southern North Carolina through South Carolina into northern Georgia. Look to hold the highest gradient with this more small and compact system. So we won't really start to see winds increase to the Outer Banks until that expands. Now let's take a quick look at the rain. Rain is going to be one of the primary threats besides rip currents for the South Carolina area. But notice how this rain starts to swath up towards North Carolina, and that's mainly in association with that upper trough. We could get an atmospheric river up over North Carolina in association with the moisture that the tropical system is feeding up to the upper level atmosphere, and that upper trough carrying that moisture up through North Carolina. So we could have washout situation through this area, or even parts of inland area as well for the next several days as this storm system stays down here to the south. Before it actually moves off to the northeast, it may stall for a little bit. So here's the next 5 days rain forecast, and it does show some pretty healthy banding and rain making it up all the way up into the northeast United States along that upper trough. So I hate to be the bearer of the bad news for that, but nothing is for certain with this either, so we can't forget that there may be some periods of time here where you do get a decent south-southeast gradient, enough to maybe have a competition with some rideable conditions, maybe with a bigger kite, but we could see some mid to upper teens and even near 20 knots at times where the gradient does increase as the storm gets on the move to the northeast. Here's the latest track guidance, and you see this very sharp turn right here from as it makes it along the South Carolina coast. A lot of models actually pull this up to the northeast. Now the berth is very wide, Some have it penetrating further inland across up towards the mountains in the Piedmont and then heading off to the northeast. And some turn this a little bit earlier and headed up in this general direction. So most of the model agreement does bring this storm to the northeast towards the Outer Banks, and that could increase the gradient through your area. However, we'd have to watch for rains and storms to be sort of pulling through with gust fronts and convective lines, and it gets a little bit messy. But you could have some periods of sunshine there where the gradient tightens and you get some instability from sunshine mixing with some of these prefrontal storms as they're coming up the coastline. You may have a couple hours time here and there to get something going, but for right now we just have to keep an eye on the track of this system as it heads towards the South Carolina coast. The numerical model guidance, I definitely want to take a quick peek at this for you. Now here's the GFS, and this is going to be directly driving the wind forecast that you're seeing in the models right now. So for the next 48 or 36 to 48 hours, the models that you see in Quick Look are usually driven by the NAM 12K, and then they flip to the GFS, which runs all the way out for the next 4 days or out to 6 to 7 days. So what you're seeing in the Quick Look and the GFS beyond 48 to 72 hours is going to be heavily biased by what you're about to see right here. And what it does is it keeps this low down to the south and suppressed, and that's basically because we get a Appalachian ridge of high pressure built up to the north, which has winds that suppress the system to the south. The Bermuda High out here that's supposed to be steering this system and up and around it off the coastline will not be enough to pull this storm off the coast. That is the solution that GFS is coming up with. However, if we look at the Euro model, which is another popular model that we tend to always put a lot of effort into when it comes to forecasting, brings this low into the coast just south of Charleston, and then it very quickly gives it a sharp turn to the east and then up to northeast. And this is where you could get some intensified gradient wrapping around this low pressure here on this says Tuesday morning. So either way, this system does look like to be a slow mover when it gets to the South Carolina coast, and then once it starts moving, it should move out pretty quickly. So that's the Euro model. As far as rain goes, I want to take a quick peek at the moisture from the NAM 4 kilometer, and this is going to give you an idea of what that troughing mechanism is going to do. And watch the rains as they build to the north of this system and start to swath into the coastline, and that's all feeding up along that upper trough, which is still existent here to the east of the storm, and it's going to become a part, it's going to be married to this system all the way through the event. Originally we thought maybe this tight low pressure would break away from it and be on its own in between the dip and the trough, or the trough axis, which was down here over the Bahamas and through the Bahamas and down over Dominican Republic. But now it looks like this eastern wing, or the jet of the trough, is going to be following along the eastern side of the system. So that means the rains are going to be swathing up into North Carolina, and that's going to be kind of a washout situation for where you are. But the NAM 4 kilometer does keep this rain training up into that area and actually builds it in time. And that's about as far out as the model will go right there at about 60 hours. So for a high resolution model, it's not bad, but the HER 3 kilometer gives you better rendition of precipitation. So what does that really mean for your area? If we look at Datascope, this is our professional viewer, what's going on right now, and I'm going to take Real Slick for example. We have a very light gradient. I mean, there's you know, out here in Pimlico Sound we have 11 miles an hour, so it's about 10 to 12 miles an hour. Very light winds tonight and about 6 miles an hour. And if we look at the details, we can start to build what's going to happen with the modeling. Now we have to remember that the computer forecast table down here in the Quick Look is built off of the GFS past 2 to 3 days. I'm going to run all the models here in the details. I'm going to blow it up in the screen so you can see a little bit better. So whenever we're looking at model forecasts and you see the Quick Look or the Quick Look Plus, that is not all there is. There's a whole suite of models. In fact, the Quick Look Plus is a blend of 3 different models. So it uses the HER 3 kilometer, and then it goes to the NAM 5 kilometer, and then it actually builds into the GFS. So it's a triple layer model and versus the Quick Look, which is the NAM 12 to the GFS. So as we go in time, it looks like Saturday at 11 a.m., 10 to 11 a.m., the HER is picking up for tomorrow morning in north-northeast wind building. All the other models keep it more easterly. And as we go into Sunday, that HER 3 kilometer, since it's so high resolution, drops off after 15 hours, so it's non-existent anymore, or actually more like 12 or 13 hours at this point. But you can see all the model disagreement on the speeds. The general consensus is that the winds will slowly start to pick up in time as we get into Sunday. Now, there's so much disagreement and there's so many variables that go on with these tropical systems. It makes it very difficult to make a forecast even daily. So, when we have so much disagreement with models, you don't really know the true track of the system. You just have to kind of be patient and watch what the latest trends are in the sensors day to day and even hour by hour. So if we look at Monday, for example, we have one model saying north, one model saying south, one saying southeast, one saying south-southwest. Really what you do is you sort of go with the general majority rule there. So you would say a southerly wind on Monday, and it could even be building into Tuesday. In fact, Tuesday, the Canadian model builds an east-northeasterly wind from that high pressure to the north, building down, and upon the exit of the Bonnie, what may be Bonnie, could have a wraparound gradient effect to get the east-northeast winds going by Tuesday midday. And that's just one model suite or one model opinion about it, but at least you have sort of an idea of what's going to happen. But for right now, for Saturday and Sunday, it looks kind of a washout. You may have some decent south-southeast or southeast winds on Sunday. We just don't know for sure. In fact, if we look at the afternoon, the NAM 5 kilometer does bring it up from the southeast. So Sunday afternoon might be in the window for some decent winds, being 15 to 20 miles an hour. So that would be the day to kind of keep your eye on for the immediate future. After that, it's just really too hard to tell. But until then, I hope you guys have a good time until at least the competition starts, and I'll be back on hopefully tomorrow night or Sunday morning to do an update for the forecast. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.